Is the pro forma ready? Shall I move ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll go ahead to the journal entries. As I told you, journal is the book of primary entry. Remember that always. Journal is called as the book of original or primary entry, as any business transaction is first recorded in our journal. And from the journal only, then we pass it on to the other books like ledger, and then we prepare the trial balance, and then we go to the final stage of preparing the final accounts of the business. Another major important thing which you have to remember for the journal is that in the journal, all the transactions are recorded in chronological order. When I say chronological order, it implies according to the dates. So if a transaction has appeared on January 1st, it will be recorded first. And then whatever has appeared on January 2nd and then 3rd and so on. So in the journal, all transactions are recorded in the chronological order. And we have seen the pro forma of journal. The journal, the heading says journal entries in the books of, you write the name of the person after that. And then it has 5 columns. First column is for the date, wherein you mention the date of the transaction. The second column is the particulars column, wherein you write the details of which account is debited and which account is credited. The next one is the LF column, which is called as the ledger folio column. So ledger folio column is the column which shows the page number of the ledger in which we have transferred this transaction. So that will come at a later stage. Right now we do not have any ledger, so we will leave this column blank. Otherwise, ledger folio is the column wherein you mention the page number of the ledger where this transaction has been transferred. Then the debit amount and credit amount columns are for writing the amount on the debit, amount of the debit account and the credit account. So we look at our first problem. Problem number 1, pass the journal entries in the books of Manohar. So he is asking us to write journal entries in the books of Manohar. So whenever we are doing these transactions, we will assume ourselves as the owner and then we will do it. So it becomes easy for us. So right now we will assume that we ourselves are Manohar and we are writing the business transactions in our own books. Right? So he has given us the year, he has given us the dates, and he has given us all the transactions. Right? So this is your question. Past journal entries in the books of Manohar. He has given the year as 2019 and the transactions are starting from January 1st. Now one important thing to note here is, see right now in the question he has given all transactions in chronological order. January 1st is given before and then follow 2nd, 5th, 7th and so on. Sometimes he might give you January 7th before and January 2nd later. So you need to be careful when you are writing in the journal, you need to write the transactions in chronological order only. So that is the rule for journal. All entries are written in chronological order. So we look at the first transaction. 2019 is our year. January 1st is the date. He says Manohar commenced business with cash of rupees 2 lakhs. So now this transaction implies that the business has been started by investing cash of rupees 2 lakhs and Manohar is the person who is investing the business, investing cash into the business. And we are writing entries in the books of Manohar. That means we are preparing the books of accounts for Manohar. So right now we are assuming ourselves to be Manohar. So we are writing the entries in our own books. And the first entry says that business has been commenced with cash of rupees 2 lakhs. So from this transaction, again the same thing. Now we have to do everything in the mind. After doing all that in the mind, then we will put it in our journal. So first thing is we need to identify which are the 2 accounts in this transaction. So can you tell me what are the 2 accounts in this transaction? Manohar commenced business with cash. Yes, Vishnu, Vaishnavi, Diksha, anyone? What are the 2 accounts which are involved in this transaction?
Capital and cash.
Is it capital and cash or is it Manohar and cash?
Manohar's capital and cash.
Yeah, you can call it as Manohar's capital, or even if you call it as capital, there's no problem. Because we are writing the entries in the books of Manohar itself. So you need not indicate the name Manohar again and again. So the two accounts involved in this transaction are cash account and capital account. And we know cash account is a real account. Capital account is a personal account because it is representing a specific person. And right now the person is Manohar. So cash is real, Manohar is personal. And the rule for real account says debit what comes in, credit what goes out. So in our current transaction, cash is coming into the business. Remember, you should always think according to the business, not according to the owner or the proprietor or the person who is investing. Remember, the owner and the business are two different things. So you should assume everything, you should do everything keeping in mind the business transactions. Don't think about the owner and do it. So whether cash is coming into the business is important. You should not look at whether cash is coming towards Manohar or moving out from Manohar. No. You have to see whether cash is coming into the business and moving out of the business. You have to keep the owner and the business separate. So right now, cash is coming into the business. So that means we need to debit the cash account because rule for real account says debit what comes in. So cash account should be debited. And then, so we automatically know that because cash is debited, capital account will be credited. Otherwise also we can check capital is a personal account. The rule of personal account says debit the receiver and credit the giver. And here Manohar is the giver of cash. So his account should be credited. So now we need to do all this in our mind. So now we have finalized that cash should be debited and Manohar should be, capital should be credited. So how do we write this transaction in the journal? So this is how we will write the transactions in the journal. In the date column, you will write the date of the transaction. That is January 1st, 2019. And whichever account is debited, the name of that account is written in the first line in the particulars column. You will write it as cash account. Whichever account is debited, that account entry will come in the first line. So cash account, and after that you leave some space and then write the term DR. DR means debtor, debited to. The term DR means debited. So we are stating that cash account debtor. Debtor, it is the abbreviation of the word debtor. DR stands for debtor. It is the abbreviation of that term. So you will write in the first line, you will write the name of the account which is to be debited. Leave some space and write DR. Then go to the next line. And when you go to the next line, you have to leave some space and then write to. Always the same pro forma will be followed. Leave some space and then write to. As you start a new paragraph when you're writing sentences in English, if you're starting a new paragraph, you leave some space and write. So like that, you need to leave some space and then write to and followed by the account which is to be credited. So cash account, leave the space, write DR, come to the next line, leave some space, write to, and it should be capital T. So to, and then you will write the account to be credited. Right now it is capital account. And then we leave the LF column blank. In the amount column, towards cash, write the amount of cash. Towards capital, write the amount of capital. So with cash account, write the cash account's amount. With capital, write the capital account's amount. The amount is 2 lakh. Now, after writing the journal entry, every time each journal entry is followed by a narration. So what is narration? Narration is the short description of the business transaction. So whatever is the transaction, we need to give a short description of that. Now, why are we giving this short description? See, if a layman sees this entry, cash account debited to capital account, he will not understand what it is. So that is why we will give a short description of what that transaction is. So once a person reads the description, he will know on what account have we written this entry. And the description will always be written in brackets and it starts with the word being, B-E-I-N-G. So after every journal entry, open brackets, start with the word being, the description need not be anything fixed. It can be in your own words. Only how you are going to explain that transaction. So right now our transaction was Manohar commenced business with cash. So you can just write it as being business commenced with cash, or being business started with cash, close the brackets. If you have done till this, then it implies you have completed your first entry or the first transaction. Am I clear? So our date we have written in the date column. In the particulars column, we first write the name of the account which is to be debited. Leave some space and write the term DR. Go to the next line, leave some space, write the term to, followed by the account which is to be credited. Write the amount in the amount columns. After that, we need to write the narration, which is the short description of the business transaction. So you need to open the brackets, and the narration will always start with the term being. So being business started with cash, and close the brackets. One more simple thing, if you are not able to write the narration in your own words, simple thing what you can do is write being, copy down the transaction, whatever is given. So our transaction was Manohar commenced business with cash. So you can write it as being Manohar commenced business with cash. So for any transaction, if you are able to explain it in simple terms in your own language, you can write it like that in the narration, or otherwise just write being and copy down whatever is your transaction. So is the first entry clear to everyone? You need to note down the transactions. Yes, so shall we go ahead to the next one?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I've just shown you one example of the entry being written. So from now on, you will have to write the entry on your own. I'll just explain the entries. You will note it down in the journal. Is that clear? I have not written the remaining entries in the proforma of journal. So you can write down in the proforma of journal. We'll discuss the entries and you can put it in the same proforma. So we'll go back to our question. Now the second entry says January 2nd, paid into bank. When it says paid into bank, so that what does it imply? What have we paid into bank? The transaction only says paid into bank. So what have
Cash.
we paid into the bank? Yes, it's implied that cash has been paid. And who has paid cash into bank? It's a business transaction. That means the money from the business is going to the bank.
Yeah.
We need not take it as Manohar.
Manohar's business.
Yes, we will only treat it as business. Don't take it as Manohar's paid cash into bank. Here it says paid into bank. That means money from the business has gone into the bank. So there are two things again. So we have to identify the two accounts. The two accounts here would be cash account and bank account. Cash account because it's implied that cash has been paid into bank. And the second account is bank account. So cash account, as we know, it's a real account, and we know the rule, debit what comes in, credit what goes out. So right now cash is going out of the business because from the business it is going into the bank. So cash account should be credited, and then cash account should be credited or debited?
Credited.
Credited because cash is moving out, and then bank is a personal account. So you need to see whether it is receiver or giver. Bank right now is the receiver, and the rule for personal account says debit the receiver and credit the giver. So now we know that bank should be debited and cash should be credited. So now go back to your journal entries, proforma, and write the entry in the transaction. So put your next date here. I have not written here. You will start writing. Put the next date in the date column. So in the first line, you will write bank account. Leave some space. Write the term DR. Come to the second line. Leave some space. Write the term to. And then write cash account. And A by C is the abbreviated form of account. So you need not write that account every time. ACCOUNT, you need not write that. A by C is the short form of that which we use every time. So our second transaction would be bank account debtor to cash account. I'll repeat, write bank account in the first line, and after the first transaction is over, leave some space before you start the next transaction. Just leave one finger line space and then start the next transaction. So you'll write bank account, leave the space, write DR, come to the next line, leave some space, write the term to, and then cash account. LF column will be left blank. Amount you'll have to write in the amounts column. And after that, open your brackets to write the narration. So the narration will be being cash paid into bank. So write down the narration, being cash paid into bank, and close your bracket. So your transaction is done. So after each transaction, if you wish, you can draw a line here just to differentiate each another transaction, or otherwise you can just leave sufficient space. And remember, your narration should be written only in the particulars column. It should not go beyond to your LF column or the debit and credit amount column. The narration should be written only in the particulars column. It cannot go beyond to the LF column or the debit and credit amount column. You can continue if it is a long statement. You can continue in the next line in this column itself. Right. So we'll go back to the next transaction. Next, the date is January 5th. It says paid for stationery. So one of you tell me the journal entry for that now. Do it in your mind and tell me the entries. Paid for stationery. Yes, Vishnu, can you tell me the entry for this? Paid for stationery. Which account should be debited and which should be credited? Is Vishnu listening or no? Yes, Vishnu, are you trying it out? Paid for stationery. Vaishnavi, can you try it out? Yes, paid for stationery. Tell me which two accounts are involved in this? Stationery and?
Cash.
Cash. Okay, so which account should be debited? Should we debit stationery account or should we debit cash account?
Account.
Which account? Your voice is not clear, Vaishnavi.
Stationery account, ma'am.
Yes, stationery account should be debited. That's correct. So our next transaction says paid for stationery. So again, go and write the date in the date column. And now we know stationery is a nominal account and it's an expenditure. So it will be debited. And cash is a real account. And cash is going out from us because we are paying for stationery. So cash is moving out from the business. So cash account should be credited. So go back to your journal pro forma. Put the date in the date column as January 5th. Come to the particulars column. In the first line, write stationery account. Leave some space, write DR. Come to the next line. Leave some space and write to. And then write cash account. So stationery account debtor to cash account. This is how we read it. January 5th, stationery account debtor to cash account. Write the amount in both the amount columns, 2,000 rupees. And then we begin with the narration. So open your brackets, write the term being cash paid for stationery. That is your narration. Being cash paid for stationery, and then close your brackets. So as I told, after each journal entry, you can either draw a line or you can leave some space before you start the next entry. So the entry is clear. Stationery account debtor to cash account. So we'll move forward to the next transaction, January 7th. It says purchased goods from Suresh. So here, remember it says purchased goods from Suresh. So he is giving us the name of the person that we have purchased goods from, from Mr. Suresh. So because he is giving the name of the person, it is implied that it is a credit transaction. It is not a cash transaction. So that means there is no cash involved here. It is a credit transaction. We have purchased goods from Suresh and we are going to pay him the amount later. We are not paying him the amount now. So because we'll pay him the amount later, we need to open Suresh's account, as we have to remember to whom we have to pay and how much we have to pay later. So the two accounts involved in this transaction are purchases account and Suresh account. Purchases, because it is purchased goods. So whenever we are purchasing or selling goods, then we call it as purchases account and sales account. So first account is purchases account. Second one is Suresh's account. So purchases is a nominal account because it's an expenditure. We are spending money to purchase. Suresh is a personal account. The rule for nominal account says debit all expenses. So because purchases is an expense, purchases account should be debited. And Suresh is a personal account. We need to see whether he is the receiver or giver of goods. So we are purchasing from Suresh, so it automatically means that Suresh is the giver. So because he is the giver, his account needs to be credited. So that means purchases should be debited and Suresh should be credited. So go back to your pro forma, put the date in the date column as January 7th. In the first line, write purchases account, leave some space, write the term DR. Go to the next line, leave some space, write the term to, and then write Suresh's account. Put the amount as 30,000 in both the columns, debit column and credit column. Then we'll write the narration, open your brackets, write the term being goods purchased from Suresh. Being goods purchased from Suresh, and then close your brackets. So the transaction is done. Purchases account debtor to Suresh's account. Amount is 2,000 in the debit column and 2,000 in the credit column. Always remember the amount in the debit and credit column will remain the same because it is one transaction having twofold effect. So being goods purchased from Suresh. Yes, are you all understanding? Do we move to the next entry? Anyone
yes,
has any doubts?
No, ma'am.
No, so we'll move forward. See the next
Yeah.
entry, next transaction says January 10th, interest received from Sahil. Now again it is a little complicated entry. It says interest received from Sahil. He is telling us that we have already received interest. And if you are receiving interest, it's implied you will receive it in the form of cash only. Then he is again giving us the name Sahil also. So he is giving us the name only to confuse us. Remember, whenever you are receiving or paying cash, you need not remember from whom you are receiving or paying. You have to remember the purpose. On what account are we receiving? So here, by mistake, most of the students, what they will write? They will make two accounts as interest and Sahil. But you should not take it as interest and Sahil. You need to take it as interest and cash. Because in which form are you receiving interest? You are receiving in the form of cash. So from whom you are receiving is in material. You are receiving cash from, you are receiving cash on account of interest. As I told you yesterday also, if he would have given interest receivable from Sahil, then you have to remember his account. Because, remember his name, because you are going to receive interest from him on a later date. But right now you are already receiving. So the two accounts involved in this transaction are interest account and cash account. So interest is a nominal account. Here interest is an income because we are receiving it. If we were paying, then it would become an expenditure. But right now we are receiving interest. So interest is a nominal account, and because it's an income, it should be credited. Cash is a real account. So the rule applies, debit what comes in, credit what goes out. Here we are receiving interest from Sahil. So that means cash is coming into the business. So because cash is coming in, it should be debited. So interest account to be credited and cash account to be debited. So go back to your pro forma of journal entries. Put the date in the date column as January 10th. In the first line, write cash account, leave some space, write the term DR. Go to your next line, leave some space, write the term to, and then write interest account. So our entry says cash account debtor to interest account. Write the amounts in the amount column, 3,000 and 3,000. Remember, Debit amount column should be written in the same line where you have written the account which is to be debited. Credit amount column should be written in the same line where you have written the account to be credited. Then open your brackets and write the narration. Being interest received. Being interest received, or you can also write being interest received from Sahil, and then close the bracket. We'll go to the next transaction. So next one is January 15th. It says purchased office furniture. Now the transaction says purchased office furniture. So you need to remember it is purchasing of office furniture here. It is not purchasing of goods. So when it is not purchasing of goods, you cannot write purchases account here. So purchased office furniture, the two accounts involved here would be furniture account and cash account. Cash, we have to understand it's implied that we have purchased furniture through cash because he did not mention anything else. And you cannot write purchases account because it is not purchases of goods. It is purchase of an asset. Furniture is an asset for the business. So it is the purchases of asset. So you will have to write the name of the asset. So the two accounts involved here are furniture account and cash account. And both of them are real account. So you know the rule, debit what comes in and credit what goes out. So you have to debit whatever is coming into the business and you have to credit whatever is going out of the business. So when we are purchasing furniture, furniture is coming in and cash is going out. So furniture account to be debited, cash account to be credited. So go to your pro forma of journal, put the date in the date column as January 15th. In the first line of particulars, write it as furniture account, leave some space, write the term DR. Go to the next line, leave some space, write the term to cash account. So furniture account data to cash account. Go to your amount column, write the amounts in both the columns as 10,000. Come back to write your narration, open the brackets, write the term being office furniture purchased. Being office furniture purchased, close your brackets. So we move ahead to the next transaction. January 20th, the transaction says cash sales for rupees 25,000. Now when the transaction is like this, cash sales 25,000. So what does it mean? Can you tell me what it means, cash sales 25,000? Yes?
So,
What have we sold for 25,000? It just says cash sales 25,000. So what did we sell for this 25,000 rupees?
goods, ma'am.
Yeah, it's understood and it's implied that we have sold goods. Cash sales of 25, because we use the term sales and purchases only for our goods. Otherwise, you mention the name there of the asset. There is no mention of any asset there and nothing else is mentioned. So it implies cash sales means we have sold goods for cash. So when you have sold goods for cash, the two accounts involved are cash account and sales account. And when you're selling the goods, cash is coming into the business, so cash should be debited. Sales is an income, so sales should be credited. So go back to your journal entries, write the entry as cash account debtor to sales account for 25,000. So note the entry, write the date as January 20th, cash account debtor to sales account, being goods sold for cash. Being goods sold for cash is our narration. We move forward to the next entry. January 22nd, it says received commission 2,500. So we have received commission from someone. So it's implied that we will receive commission in the form of cash. So the two accounts involved are cash account and commission account. We are receiving commission. That means cash is coming into the business. So cash is a real account. It is coming in. So cash will be debited. Commission is a nominal account and you are receiving commission here. So it's an income for us. So incomes are to be credited. So commission account will be credited. So cash account to be debited, commission account to be credited. Go back to your journal entries. Write the date in the date column, January 22nd. So write the entry as cash account debtor to commission account, 2500 amount in both the columns. Open brackets to write your narration, being commission received. Your narration states being commission received, close the brackets. We'll move forward to the next entry, January 24th, sold goods to Manoj, 20,000. Now here he's clearly indicating the name of the person. It is sold goods to Manoj. So we have sold goods to Manoj. He is giving us the name of the person. It implies that it is a credit transaction. So we need to create Manoj's account because we have sold goods to him. So he will pay us the amount later. We need to remember him so that he can give us the amount later. So the two accounts involved in this account are sales account and Manoj's account. Sales is an income, so sales will be credited. Manoj is a personal account and he is the receiver of goods, so receiver should be debited. So Manoj will be debited and sales will be credited. So write the journal entry, January 24th, Manoj account debtor to sales account, 20,000, being goods sold to Manoj. So Manoj account debtor to sales account, write the narration, being goods sold to Manoj, and write the amount in both the amount columns. Now we move forward to the next transaction, January 25th. January 25th, the transaction says cash withdrawn from bank. So when it says cash withdrawn from bank, it implies we have taken cash out of our bank account. That means cash is moving out from the bank and it is coming into the business. We have withdrawn some cash from the bank and brought it into our business. So the two accounts involved here are cash account and bank account. Cash is a real account, and when we have withdrawn cash from bank, it is coming into the business. So cash should be debited. Automatically bank will be credited. If we want to check it, bank is a personal account and right now bank is the giver because from bank we are withdrawing cash and bringing it into the business. So bank account should be credited. So write your journal entry, January 25th, cash account debtor to bank account rupees 10,000. I'll repeat, cash account debtor to bank account 10,000, being cash withdrawn from bank. Being cash withdrawn from bank. So we'll move to the next entry, January 28. The entry says, the transaction says cash received from Manoj. So if you remember, earlier we have sold goods to Manoj. It was a credit transaction. So now on January 28, that means after 4 days, we are receiving cash from Manoj. Cash received from Manoj. So the two accounts involved here are cash account and Manoj's account. And the amount is 8,000. So cash is a real account and it is coming in because we are receiving cash. So cash account should be debited. Manoj is a personal account and he is the giver of the money. So his account should be credited. So write the journal entry, January 28, cash account debtor to Manoj's account 8,000. And then write the narration, being cash received from Manoj. Being cash received from Manoj. Cash account debtor to Manoj's account. So we come to our last transaction for this problem. January 30th, paid salaries. So when the transaction says paid salaries, it is implied that salaries are paid in the form of cash. So two accounts involved in the transaction are salaries account and cash account. Salaries is an expenditure because we are paying it. So according to the rule of nominal account, expenses should be debited. Hence salaries account will be debited. And cash is going out of the business, so cash should be credited. So write the journal entry, January 30th in the date column, Come to the particulars column, salaries account, leave some space, write the term DR. Go to the next line, leave some space, write the term to cash account. So salaries account data to cash account, amount of 12,000 in both the columns, debit and credit. Then write the narration, being salaries paid. Being salaries paid. So we are done with problem number 1. Just go through all the entries once. And I hope you understood how to write the journal entries. In this format only you will be writing journal entries for every problem. And remember, what we have done is only the first step in the process of accounting. The accounting definition says, accounting is the process of recording, classifying and summarizing business transactions. And then the definition continues. So our first step is recording. Recording implies writing the transactions in the book of journal. What we have just learned. So we are just writing the business transactions in the journal. And if you are able to write the transactions perfectly in the journal, you will be able to do the entire remaining process of accounting. Then it becomes very, very simple. But if you make a mistake in the journal itself, then you will make a mistake in every other step. Remember, all other steps of accounting are dependent on journal. So one mistake in the journal will lead to a mistake in our final accounts. And our profit picture will be wrong. Our balance sheet will not be appropriate. Assets and liabilities figure will not be matching. So that means when you're writing the journal entries, you need to be very, very careful. You should identify the types of accounts properly. You should apply the rules properly. You should be clear which account is to be debited and which account is to be credited. And then write the transaction. And this entire process will be done in the mind. Only the transaction will be written in the journal. So if you're writing the account to be debited and the account to be credited correctly, then it implies you're doing the transaction appropriately and your journal will be correct. Yes, so we are done with the first problem. Is there any doubt in the problem? You can check once and let me know if there is any doubt. Otherwise, we will do the next problem tomorrow. Anyone has any doubts in the question number 1?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No doubts? Okay, so we'll do the next question tomorrow. Remember, our course is ending with journal entries. So we have the course for 2 more days. We'll be doing 2 more problems for journal entries and then we will be done with the course. Yes, so we'll meet tomorrow at the same time, 12 o'clock, and we'll do 1 more problem on journal. So every time you'll need to do the same way. In the same pro forma, you'll have to write the journal entries. So see you all tomorrow. I'll end the meeting.
Ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you and see you all.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye. See you.